For a very long time, Danny Koker chose silence over confrontation. The man known to fans of counting cars had always followed a personal rule. Loyalty meant protecting the people who once worked beside him, even after they were gone. But after years of holding back, that silence has finally come to an end. Recently, Danny has begun speaking more openly in interviews and private conversations about some of the most difficult chapters in the history of his Las Vegas shop, Counts Customs. In these conversations, Danny has revealed that 5 former employees played roles in situations that nearly derailed everything he had spent decades building. These revelations are not simply stories about cast members leaving a television program. They are deeper lessons about loyalty, misplaced trust, and the complicated consequences that can arise when individuals gain access to a business that was built on personal relationships and shared passion. For Danny, the experiences were painful reminders that success can sometimes attract the wrong kind of attention. For more than 10 years, Danny kept a strict policy of refusing to publicly discuss former employees. Whether someone left the company on good terms or bad ones, he preferred to move forward quietly rather than revisit the past. Friends and fans often asked questions about certain departures, but he consistently avoided answering them. That long period of silence eventually began to change. Time allowed him to reflect on what happened, and he also watched how some of those departures affected the loyal team members who remained at the shop. Gradually, he began to feel that telling the truth might help people understand the real challenges behind the scenes. Today, Danny admits that the decision to speak out did not come easily. Loyalty has always been central to his personal philosophy. Yet he also believes that honesty about past mistakes can offer valuable lessons, especially for anyone trying to build a business based on trust. The stories he now shares are not meant to embarrass former coworkers. Instead, they serve as reminders of how fragile trust can be when the wrong personalities enter an environment built on passion and craftsmanship. To fully understand these experiences, it helps to look at Danny's background and how he built the world that later became famous through counting cars. His journey did not begin in front of cameras. Long before television producers ever noticed him, Danny was a young boy growing up in Detroit, surrounded by engines, tools, and the unmistakable scent of gasoline inside neighborhood garages. Detroit during Danny's childhood was still widely known as the heart of the American automotive industry. Being raised there meant cars were more than simple machines. They represented creativity, identity, and personal pride. Danny spent countless hours watching mechanics work and learning how every part of a vehicle served a purpose. His father played a major role in shaping those early lessons. Danny's father, Danny Koker Sr., was primarily known as a musician who performed with respected gospel groups. But outside of music, he also believed strongly in the values of discipline and integrity. He taught his son that success rarely happens alone. The people you surround yourself with, he often explained, can determine whether a dream thrives or falls apart. Those lessons remained with Danny as he grew older. When he eventually moved to Las Vegas and founded Counts Customs, his goal was never simply to run a profitable garage. Instead, he wanted to create an environment where talented builders could collaborate, share ideas, and treat every project as a work of art. The shop quickly became known for its dedication to classic American vehicles and custom motorcycles. Danny hired employees who shared the same passion he felt for automotive culture. In his mind, the shop was less like a typical workplace and more like a family of enthusiasts who respected one another's talents. Each build represented the reputation of the entire team, so everyone was expected to treat customer vehicles with extraordinary care. The path from local business owner to television personality happened almost by accident. Danny occasionally appeared on the popular series Pawn Stars as a specialist who evaluated motorcycles and classic cars. Producers noticed that his enthusiasm and deep knowledge of automotive history made him engaging to watch. Eventually, those appearances led to a new opportunity. In 2012, the History Channel launched Counting Cars, a program centered on Danny and the talented crew working inside a shop. The series quickly gained popularity, because it offered viewers a rare look at the process of restoring and customizing vehicles. Unlike many reality shows, it focused heavily on craftsmanship and the personalities of the people doing the work. However, the success of television also introduced new challenges. Danny suddenly found himself balancing two demanding roles at once. On one hand, he was still running a busy custom shop that required precise attention to detail. On the other hand, he now had to operate in the unpredictable world of reality television, where filming schedules, producers, and public expectations became part of daily life. The pressure increased as the show's popularity grew. More customers wanted their cars built at Count Customs, and the crew also had to meet production deadlines for episodes. The environment that once felt like a small, close-knit team gradually became more complex. Danny's hiring philosophy had always been straightforward. He looked for people who genuinely loved cars and motorcycles. Technical skill mattered, but attitude mattered even more. He wanted employees who treated every vehicle with respect and who understood that their work reflected the reputation of the entire shop. For several years, this approach worked beautifully. The early seasons of Counting Cars showcased a group of employees who seemed like longtime friends collaborating on exciting builds. But fame has a way of changing circumstances. As the show became widely recognized, new personalities began appearing around the shop. Some individuals saw the opportunity differently. Instead of viewing the business as a place to perfect their craft, they began to treat it as a stepping stone toward personal recognition. Danny soon realized that mechanical ability alone was not enough to guarantee success in such an environment. Character, humility, and loyalty were equally important. One of the most troubling situations involved a man named Joseph Frontier. Frontier worked as the shop's bookkeeper and was responsible for managing sensitive financial information. Because the business operated like a family, Danny placed enormous trust in the people handling those responsibilities. Unfortunately, that trust was badly abused. Over a period of months, Frontier secretly diverted more than $75,000 from company accounts. According to reports, the money was used for personal purchases, including a down payment on a Range Rover, as well as vacation travel expenses. When Danny discovered the missing funds, he described the moment as devastating. The loss was not only financial. It shattered the assumption that everyone inside the business shared the same ethical standards. Investigations later suggested that Frontier had forged Danny's signature on certain documents and manipulated financial records in order to hide the theft. Legal proceedings followed, forcing Danny to prove how the money had been taken. The case also raised questions about the staffing agency that originally placed Frontier in the position. Danny argued that someone with access to such sensitive information should have undergone more thorough screening. Even years later, Danny says the emotional impact lingered. After the incident became known among the crew, suspicion briefly spread throughout the workplace. New financial procedures had to be introduced, and employees who had done nothing wrong suddenly felt the weight of additional oversight. Another complicated situation involved Scott Jones, who appeared prominently in early seasons of Counting Cars. As shop manager, Scott was initially exactly the type of person Danny believed the business needed. He was organized, detail-focused, and committed to keeping projects within schedule and budget. During those early years, Scott often acted as the practical voice that balanced Danny's ambitious ideas. When creative builds threatened to become too complicated or expensive, Scott would remind everyone to stay realistic. But over time, Danny noticed a shift. As the television show gained popularity, Scott began acting less like a manager and more like a star of the program. Disagreements that once felt constructive gradually became personal. In certain situations, Scott began making decisions independently without consulting Danny. The relationship reached a breaking point during a particularly challenging project. According to Danny, Scott approached a client privately and criticized Danny's approach to the build. For Danny, that moment crossed an important boundary. Professional disagreements inside the shop were acceptable, but undermining leadership in front of customers was something he could not tolerate. When Scott eventually left the show, the public explanation suggested he had relocated to Tennessee to be closer to family. While that statement contained some truth, Danny later admitted that their working relationship had deteriorated beyond repair. Another well-known figure connected to the shop was Mike Henry, whose airbrush artwork became a signature element on many vehicles. Fans admired his bold designs and energetic personality. His ability to transform plain metal surfaces into colorful murals made him a standout presence. Yet Danny explains that extraordinary talent sometimes comes with equally strong egos. Over time, Mike began focusing so intensely on artistic details that it slowed the progress of entire projects. What began as dedication eventually turned into conflict when he started challenging design decisions and discussing changes directly with customers. During one high-profile build for a celebrity client, Mike spent weeks creating an elaborate airbrushed mural. While the artwork itself looked impressive, Danny felt it overwhelmed the original lines of the classic car. When he requested that the design be simplified, Mike reportedly contacted the client himself to complain about the request. For Danny, the disagreement highlighted an important principle. The shop's mission was to build cars that satisfied clients, not to create artwork that overshadowed the vehicle itself. Eventually, tensions surrounding deadlines and creative control made it impossible for the partnership to continue. Danny is more reserved when discussing Shannon Ika, who served as the lead motorcycle builder for many projects. Shannon possessed remarkable mechanical talent and built several memorable motorcycles during his time at the shop. Unlike the other situations, Shannon's departure was not rooted in betrayal or conflict. Instead, Danny believes Shannon gradually lost interest in participating in a television-driven environment. He became increasingly quiet and detached, focusing on his individual builds while avoiding group interactions. Filming sessions also made him uncomfortable. While other crew members enjoyed the attention that came with appearing on camera, Shannon often tried to avoid interviews and production schedules. Eventually, both men agreed that he would be happier pursuing projects outside the pressure of television. Perhaps the most disappointing experience involved another employee whose name Danny still refuses to mention publicly. This individual joined during the peak popularity of counting cars and quickly became popular with fans due to his humor and strong work ethic. At first, Danny believed the employee fully embraced the culture of Counts Customs. Problems emerged once the individual developed a large following on social media. Using that platform, he began promoting personal ventures while simultaneously criticizing shop policies online. Posts appeared complaining about deadlines, joking about customers, and even sharing unauthorized images of unfinished work. The situation escalated further when Danny learned that the employee had begun offering side services directly to customers who originally approached the shop. That discovery made it clear that the relationship could not continue. For Danny, competing against your own employer while still working there represented a clear violation of trust. The confrontation happened privately, but the employee ultimately left the company. Looking back on these experiences, Danny believes they forced him to become a stronger leader. The modern version of Counts Customs operates with more clearly defined expectations and professional boundaries. New employees now undergo extensive orientation processes. They learn not only technical requirements, but also the ethical standards expected from anyone representing the brand. Danny also places greater importance on evaluating character before hiring someone. Despite the challenges, the shop continues to thrive. The current team understands both the opportunities and responsibilities that come with being part of a widely recognized television series. Danny says the crew working there today represents one of the strongest teams he has ever assembled. The lessons learned from past difficulties ultimately strengthened the business. Improved systems, better communication, and a renewed emphasis on integrity have allowed the company to move forward confidently. Although Danny does not enjoy revisiting these stories, he believes they offer valuable insights about leadership. Building something meaningful requires more than talent or ambition. It requires trust, accountability, and respect for the people who depend on the business. The story behind Count's Customs, therefore, extends beyond customized vehicles and television fame. It represents the ongoing challenge of protecting values in an industry where success can quickly attract complications. Danny Koker's journey, from Detroit garages to the spotlight of counting cars, demonstrates that the people surrounding a business can shape its destiny as much as the work itself. And as the shop continues evolving, Danny remains committed to the same principles that guided him from the beginning: exceptional craftsmanship, genuine passion for cars, and choosing team members who believe in the same vision. The 5 difficult experiences he now speaks about may have tested his patience, but they also reinforced an important truth. In the end, the right people make all the difference.